So, how do you pull off the unthinkable? How do you capture a sitting head of state? That's what we're breaking down today. We're going to look at the incredible raid, the legal chaos that followed, and what this all means for the future of an entire country. All right, picture this. It's the pre dawn hours of Saturday, January 3rd, 2026. Most of the world is asleep. And then, bam, the news breaks. Deep inside Venezuela's capital, Caracas, the United States had just pulled off a lightning-fast military op. Their targets? President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores. And they got them. And when I say fast, I mean fast. Just look at this timeline. At 2:01 a.m., U.S. troops are on the ground. Less than an hour later, they have their targets. By 3:29, they're already on a warship in international waters. And then, just a little over an hour after that, the mission is announced to the whole world. Calling it audacious doesn't even begin to cover it. Okay, so the big question is how? How in the world did they actually pull this off? Let's get into it and really deconstruct the massive military and intelligence machine behind what they called Operation Absolute Resolve. You have to understand, the sheer scale here was just staggering. This was not some small, quiet raid. We're talking a full-on aerial assault with over 150 aircraft. You had F-22 Raptors basically owning the skies, taking out any air defenses. That's the seed part. At the same time, you had EA-18G Growlers jamming everything. We're talking radar, communications, even causing citywide blackouts. All of that was just to clear a path for the B-1B Lancers, and finally, the Black Hawk helicopters carrying the special ops team. But here's the thing. Overwhelming firepower alone doesn't guarantee success. Not for something this complex. The real secret sauce here was months and months of super meticulous, top-secret intelligence gathering. And it went way, way beyond just looking at satellite photos. I mean, the level of detail the CIA went into is just mind-blowing. We've learned that a small covert team was actually on the ground in Caracas for almost half a year building what they call a pattern of life analysis on Maduro. And they learned everything. His secure communication methods, his travel patterns, what he ate. They even tracked the movements of his pets. And all of that intel, it was used to build an exact full-scale replica of his compound so the Delta Force operators could rehearse this raid over and over again until it was second nature. So when the time came, the operation itself played out like a perfectly choreographed four-step dance. Step 1, blind the enemy. Coordinated airstrikes and cyber attacks took out their eyes and ears, all radar and communications. Step 2, with the coast clear, insert the special forces. Elite units were airlifted right into the heart of Caracas, under the cover of all that chaos and darkness. Step 3, breach the compound. And finally, Step 4, capture and get out. Maduro and his wife were apprehended and whisked out of the country before anyone really knew what happened. It was a textbook case of air, cyber, and ground forces working as one. Okay, so Maduro is captured and in U.S. custody. And this is where the whole story takes a sharp turn. The narrative completely pivots. This stops being just a military operation and starts being framed as a law enforcement action. The battlefield literally shifts from the streets of Caracas to a federal courtroom in New York. So, what's the legal justification for all this? It all hinges on this very specific charge, narco-terrorism conspiracy. Now, this isn't your standard drug charge. What it alleges is that Maduro and his inner circle weren't just involved in drug trafficking. They were actively providing material support to designated terrorist organizations. It basically erases the line between a head of state and the head of a criminal organization. And this is where you get this just incredible legal collision. It's a real head-scratcher. See, under international law, a sitting head of state is supposed to have sovereign immunity. They're protected from prosecution by other countries. But the U.S. indictment doesn't see a president. It sees the alleged leader of a narco-terrorist organization who is subject to U.S. federal charges. You've got two completely different legal realities crashing into each other, and frankly, it sets a wild and maybe even dangerous new precedent. In this indictment, it's not just about Maduro. His wife, Cilia Flores, was captured right alongside him and faces the same charges. And it goes even deeper, naming other high-ranking officials like Diosdado Cabello. The picture the U.S. Justice Department is painting here is of a government rotten to the core, alleging that the very top of the Venezuelan regime was running a massive drug trafficking ring they called the Cartel of the Suns. Now, as you can probably imagine, you don't just go and capture the leader of a sovereign nation without the rest of the world having something to say about it. The news sent immediate shockwaves across the globe, and the reaction was, to put it mildly, completely polarized. On one side, you had outright praise. Take Argentina's president, Javier Milei, for example, a major U.S. ally in the region. He came out and publicly celebrated the operation, framing it as a major win against a corrupt dictatorship. But that was definitely not the universal take, not by a long shot. Many of Venezuela's own neighbors, like Brazil's President Lula da Silva, were furious. They strongly condemned the raid, calling it a dangerous violation of sovereignty that brought back some really dark memories of past U.S. interventions in Latin America. And if you look at the global reaction map, you can see just how divided the world was. You had a powerful bloc, Russia, China, Iran, along with others in Latin America, issuing strong condemnations. Then you had allies and the Venezuelan opposition praising it. The UN, for its part, was deeply alarmed. And get this, even back in the United States, the reaction was split right down party lines. Republicans loved it, while many Democrats raised serious constitutional questions. So, the raid itself is over. The dramatic part is done. But the consequences? Oh, they're just getting started. Removing Maduro from power didn't solve everything. It created a massive power vacuum. And that raises the most critical question of all. What on earth happens now? Seriously, who's in charge now? That's the question on everyone's mind. With the president physically gone, there's no clear, undisputed leader left running Venezuela. And that has plunged its 28 million people into a period of just profound and dangerous uncertainty. And then came this statement from the U.S. president, which I think stunned just about everyone. He declared the U.S. intends to, and I'm quoting here, run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. Think about that. This signals a whole new, almost unprecedented level of American intervention. We're talking way beyond just changing a regime. This is basically direct administration. So what could that future actually look like? Well, experts at the Atlantic Council have pretty much laid out three main paths forward. The best-case scenario? The remaining regime officials see the writing on the wall and negotiate a peaceful transfer of power to the opposition. An alternate case suggests that maybe some elements of the old government who were secretly working with the U.S. all along just take over. But the worst-case scenario? That's a descent into a long, brutal guerrilla conflict, with armed loyalists plunging the country into total chaos. And that really brings us to the final, crucial question that's hanging over everything. Will the removal of this one man actually lead to that safe and judicious transition the U.S. promised? Or has it just lit the fuse on a massive regional conflict that could destabilize everything? Right now, the fate of Venezuela, and maybe even the entire region, is hanging precariously in the balance.